Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a genuinely fascinating philosophical text by Zhu Feng called Enemies Are Benefactors. And we're not just going to read it, we're going to look at this philosophy as a literal spiritual balance sheet. It's a framework that completely flips how we understand human suffering, our day-to-day relationships, and honestly, our ultimate purpose. If you've ever felt overwhelmed by life, or like your circumstances are just totally out of your control, well, this source text offers a radically structured and, pretty controversial perspective on exactly why things happen the way they do.
So I wanted you to start by reflecting on a question. Why are you in the specific life you have right now? Look at your current circumstances, the family you were born into, your daily environment, the people you just inevitably seem to clash with, right? We often feel completely powerless against our present reality, kind of like we're just drifting in the wind. But the text notes that the universe is actually governed by ultimate justice. It rewards and punishes with meticulous precision. According to the source material, absolutely none of what you're experiencing right now is just random chaos.
The core premise here is actually pretty straightforward. Basically, you reap what you sow. Everything we experience, whether you're going through a season of incredible prosperity or deep adversity, happiness, or just agonizing suffering, it is all simply the harvest of seeds we've sown in the past. The text argues that the outcomes you're facing today are the direct, unavoidable result of your past words and actions, even stretching all the way back into previous lives. Every single thing is connected through cause and effect.
Okay, so here is how the text actually defines human life itself. It posits that human life is strictly a debt repayment process. Literally, a ledger. You are only here on Earth because you owe something. And the text argues that as long as these debts remain unpaid, we simply cannot leave this world. So true wisdom, in this view, isn't about accumulating wealth or status or power. It's about clearing your ledger to the absolute maximum extent possible and doing it without accumulating any new liabilities. You pull this off by only doing good deeds and strictly avoiding wrongdoing.
So, to really prove this point, the text looks back at history and legend. Let's look at what it calls the ultimate debt payers, examining some historical and mythological audits.
It is wild how the source objectively takes global religious founders and mythological figures and puts them into this exact same financial framework. For instance, it says Jesus cleared his ledger by sacrificing his blood and performing good deeds to atone for his disciples, which elevated him to a god. Buddha, Shakyamuni, spent decades enlightening sinners, basically filling the universe with merit to become a Buddha. And then it shifts over to mythology. Neza physically carved out his bones to repay the biological debt owed to his parents, becoming a heavenly god. And Sun Wukong, the Monkey King, he endured 81 grueling tribulations to repay his master for saving his life. The common denominator here? Every single one of them paid their debts in full.
But what about us, ordinary people? Who do we actually owe in this grand macro audit?
Well, the text initiates an audit of the massive debts we all owe to the broader universe, and Zhu Feng argues that these huge obligations can actually be paid off with some relatively simple, highly specific actions. First up, nature. We owe it for the sunlight and vitality we absorb, so the payment is simply gratitude and refusing to spoil it. Society. We're protected by its laws, so the payment is not opposing the government. The creator. Our lives come from the greatest creator, so we pay this back by following the Tao. Parents gave us our physical bodies, so we owe them dutiful honor. And masters who guide us, well, they require our deep gratitude. Notice how structured this all is? These massive macro debts don't require agonizing suffering, they just require targeted compliance and respect.
All right, so that's the big picture. But how does this impact our daily, day-to-day lives? Let's reevaluate the household ledger. Now, a quick warning here. The text's view on family dynamics is highly counterintuitive.
Let's start with spouses. Conventionally, if there's infidelity, which the text culturally refers to as wearing a green hat, that naturally leads to grudges, anger, a desire for retribution. But the source takes a radically different stance. Shuifeng's text argues that you should actually feel joyful if your partner frustrates you or is unfaithful. I know, right? Why? Because that specific debt is now permanently canceled. By enduring their frustrations and granting them ultimate freedom, you wipe out your ledger with them. You literally free yourself to walk your own spiritual path totally unburdened.
In this financial metaphor, it gets even more intense with kids. Conventionally, we view children as blessings, right? Parents expect them to be filial and caring in return. But Zhu Feng's view? Children are literal creditors. They are born into your family purely to collect the debts you owe them. The text argues you must give to them wholeheartedly, but with absolutely zero expectation of return. In fact, if your kids are deeply unfilial, or if you end up dying hungry with no one to bury you, the text says you should accept it without a single drop of resentment. It simply means you've repaid your debt to them much more thoroughly. As the text frames it, the humbler your death, the more honorable your life.
This strict accounting applies to everyone else too. When it comes to repaying siblings and strangers, the rule is to strive to repay debts promptly without taking even the smallest advantage. The text explicitly states there is no such thing as a free lunch. You should always prefer giving more than you get. The philosophy goes so far as to claim that it's way better to die early without any debt than to live a long life burdened by it. Literally, if you can't survive without taking advantage of others, the text suggests sitting quietly and awaiting death rather than racking up new spiritual debt.
And get this, the ledger doesn't even stop at human beings. There is an animal ledger too. The text mandates treating all life with equality, simply because we benefit so much from animals, whether for joy, labor, or food. The specific protocol here is fascinating. The text states that you must not mistreat any animal, and specifically, when we eat their flesh, silently pray for their liberation from the cycle of reincarnation and wish them a swift rebirth in the Western Pure Land. You can't just take from nature, you have to spiritually compensate the animal, settling that energetic transaction.
Okay, we are building up to the climax of this explainer now. Prepare yourself for the text's most radical paradigm shift yet.
This brings us to the absolute core paradox of the entire text. Conventionally, we really value our benefactors, right? The people who love and care for us. But according to the source, these people actually keep us securely bound to the mortal world through emotional attachments and debts of gratitude. Conversely, think about our enemies, those who bully, oppress, abuse, or torment us. The text makes the astonishing claim that our enemies are actually doing the heavy lifting of clearing our debts for us. By wronging us, they absorb our karmic debt, helping us break free from the cycle. Therefore, enemies are our true benefactors.
So the text's ultimate philosophical stance is crystal clear. For those who seek the Tao, good is evil and evil is good. The evil of others allows us to achieve our own goodness. And to back this up, the source neutrally cites a really diverse mix of historical and philosophical figures. It mentions Jesus teaching us to turn the other cheek, and Buddha advising that being despised eradicates previous sins. It even cites Mao Zedong's teaching that the humblest are the wisest, right alongside the celestial Laozi, to prove this universal point. Enduring suffering at the hands of others is the ultimate, absolutely necessary path to enlightenment. Without the evil of others, we just cannot clear our ledger.
So, where does all this relentless, non-stop debt paying actually lead? Let's talk about gaining the Tao.
The resolution of this rigorous spiritual accounting is basically total spiritual bankruptcy, but in the best possible way. Listen to this quote from the text. Repay debts in all aspects of life and you will gain the Tao in all aspects. Abandon everything completely and you will gain everything completely. The ultimate victory here isn't having a massive surplus of good karma. It's having an absolute zero balance. By abandoning all worldly attachments and owing absolutely no one, not your spouse, not your kids, not society, not even the animals you consume, you gain everything.
We're going to end on the exact question the text itself poses. Are seekers of the Tao foolish? It's a pretty profound thought to leave you with. Is this extreme, totally counterintuitive path of celebrating your enemies, viewing your children as literal debt collectors, and striving for a complete zero spiritual balance just pure madness? Or, as the text confidently concludes, is it actually the clearest, sharpest wisdom of all? Think about your own personal ledger today. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the balance of your own life.